Today, we uncover the 10 so-called survival foods Australians are panic buying right now, that are actually packed with industrial seed oils, fake sugars, and chemical thickeners. Farmers across Australia are sounding the alarm that the 2026 fuel crisis is about to make fresh food prices explode. But before you rush to the supermarket to stockpile items that never go off, you need to know exactly what you are feeding your family. Stay with me to the very end, because after we expose the toxic brands hiding in your pantry, I will reveal the safe, genuinely healthy Australian alternatives that will actually protect you when the shelves go bare. Australians are waking up to a terrifying reality. With fuel rationing threatening our transport networks and inflation crushing our grocery budgets, the era of cheap, fresh food is ending. We have been told to prepare, we have been told to buy long-life staples, but here is the part nobody talks about. Over the last decade, the big supermarket duopoly and mega corporations have quietly hijacked the long-life food aisles. Instead of traditional preservation methods like natural curing or simple pressure canning, they have turned to extreme food engineering. They are using brutal heat treatments, chemical solvents, inflammatory seed oils, and modified starches to create immortal, ultra-processed junk. They slap a healthy, traditional label on the front, but what you are really hoarding is a metabolic nightmare. When you rely on these products to feed your family during a shortage, you are swapping food security for systemic inflammation. It is a masterclass in corporate deception. Let us pull back the label on the 10 toxic stockpile foods you must avoid immediately. Number 1. Commercial squeeze bottle honey. Honey is famous for being the ultimate prepper food because real honey literally never goes off. It is naturally antibacterial and packed with enzymes. So when a crisis hits, Australians load their trolleys with those cheap plastic squeeze bottles of home brand or budget commercial honey. But look closely at the fine print on the back. It usually reads, made from local and imported ingredients. Because real Australian honey is expensive, massive corporations blend it with cheap imported syrups from overseas. Food fraud investigators have repeatedly raised concerns that much of this imported product is bulked out with rice syrup or high-fructose corn syrup that bypasses standard testing to make sure it flows perfectly out of that plastic nozzle and never crystallizes on the shelf. The manufacturer blasts it with extreme heat and ultra-filters it. What does that actually mean for your body? It means all the natural pollens, enzymes, and medicinal properties that make honey a survival superfood are completely destroyed. You think you are buying immortal liquid gold, but the reality is you are stockpiling a heavily processed, internationally blended sugar syrup that has been stripped of its natural benefits. And if you think your honey is fake, wait until you see what they have done to your peanut butter. Number 2. Kraft and supermarket standard peanut butter. A massive jar of peanut butter is incredibly dense in calories, making it a staple for any emergency pantry. You assume it is just crushed peanuts and maybe a pinch of salt, but grab a standard commercial jar of smooth peanut butter and read the ingredients. You will find roasted peanuts, followed immediately by sugar and vegetable oil. To stop the natural peanut oil from separating and sitting at the top of the jar, manufacturers pump the mixture full of hydrogenated vegetable fats. Hydrogenation is an industrial process that forces hydrogen gas into liquid seed oils to turn them into a solid plastic-like fat at room temperature. This is why commercial peanut butter always looks perfectly smooth and never needs stirring. Sensory-wise, you know this texture. It sticks to the roof of your mouth with a heavy, waxy film that real crushed peanuts simply do not have. So why is this a problem? Because health experts warn that consuming hydrogenated fats and added refined sugars daily drives up cholesterol and triggers metabolic dysfunction. On the surface, the jar promises a classic, healthy Australian spread. But underneath, critics point out it is closer to a peanut-flavored industrial fat emulsion. And speaking of industrial fats, let us look at what is happening in the canned fish aisle. Number 3. John West tuna in tempura oil. Canned tuna is the holy grail of survival protein. It lasts for years and is supposedly packed with heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. Walk into Coles or Woolworths and you will see people loading entire flats of John West tuna in tempura oil into their trolleys. But read that ingredient list. You are taking a perfectly healthy wild-caught fish and drowning it in highly refined, inflammatory seed oils like soybean or canola oil. Seed oils are extracted using high heat and chemical solvents. Functional health doctors constantly warn that diets high in these refined oils throw your omega-3 to omega-6 ratios completely out of balance, driving systemic inflammation in the body. If the fresh meat supply chain collapses and you have to rely on canned protein for weeks, you do not want to be consuming a daily dose of cheap industrial lubricant with your fish. Furthermore, many of these budget commercial tuna brands process their fish in giant factories in Thailand, relying on the exact global shipping lanes that are currently gridlocked. The label suggests a healthy, premium wild-caught tuna, but the reality is, it is internationally processed fish swimming in an inflammatory oil bath designed to save the manufacturer a few cents per tin. But what about your morning energy? Number 4. Uncle Toby's Quick Oat Sachets. Rolled oats are a phenomenal survival food. They are calorically dense and provide slow-release energy. But instead of buying pure, whole oats, millions of Australians reach for the bright boxes of Uncle Toby's quick sachets, like the brown sugar and cinnamon flavors. Here is where things get genuinely uncomfortable. To make these oats cook in 90 seconds in the microwave, the manufacturer pulverizes the grain, completely destroying its structural integrity. This means your body digests it incredibly quickly, turning a complex carbohydrate into a fast-acting sugar spike. Then they dump in up to 20% refined sugar by weight, along with artificial flavors and vegetable gums, to fake a creamy texture. What does that actually do in your stomach? You think you're eating a hearty, sustaining bowl of farmer's porridge. Instead, you are eating a highly processed dessert disguised as breakfast. It gives you a massive glucose spike, followed by a brutal mid-morning crash, leaving you hungry and lethargic when you need energy the most. The box suggests wholesome traditional Australian energy, but many shoppers feel it is a pulverized, sugar-spiked shadow of what a real oat should be. And to pour over those oats, Australians are buying the worst long-life liquid on the market. Number 5. Sanitarium UP and Go and commercial almond milks. The dairy supply chain is terrifyingly fragile. If the diesel stops, the milk tankers stop and fresh milk vanishes. Knowing this, people panic buy long-life milk alternatives. They load up on cartons of Sanitarium UP and Go, which is aggressively marketed as the nutrition of a bowl of cereal and milk. But look at the back of the carton. The ingredients are filtered water, skim milk powder, cane sugar, soy protein, canola oil, maltodextrin, and a cocktail of vegetable gums. This is an ultra-processed nightmare. They have taken water, pumped it full of refined sugar and maltodextrin, which is a cheap, high-glycemic starch, and then added canola oil to fake the fat content of real milk. They use industrial gums like carrageenan to stop the oil and water from separating in the box. In a food shortage, you need nutrient-dense, whole foods. You do not need an artificial slurry of seed oils, soy protein, and sugar holding itself together with chemical thickeners. The marketing screams, healthy, high-protein liquid energy. But the label practically admits they engineered a cheap, shelf-stable chemical emulsion and slapped a health halo on it. Because what you are about to hear changes the way you look at canned meals forever. Number 6. Heinz baked beans and supermarket spaghetti. When a crisis hits, canned meals fly off the shelves because they do not require refrigeration and can be eaten cold. Baked beans are an Australian institution. But let us break down what is actually inside that heavy tin. The beans themselves are fine, but the sauce they are swimming in is a cheap industrial syrup. The ingredients for the sauce usually feature water, massive amounts of sugar, and thickener 1422, which is a highly modified maize starch. To save money on slowly reducing real tomatoes into a rich sauce, manufacturers water down cheap tomato paste and pump it full of this modified starch. Thickener 1422 is chemically altered to withstand extreme heat inside the canning factory without breaking down. Then, to mask the metallic taste of the can and the blandness of the starch, they dump in refined sugar. A single can of some commercial baked beans contains up to 20 grams of sugar. Sensory-wise, the sauce is strangely glossy, slightly gelatinous, and overly sweet. You think you are stockpiling protein and vegetables, but you are actually hoarding highly sweetened, starch-thickened junk food. The surface promises a hearty meal, but the reality is cheap legumes drowned in a modified sugar syrup designed entirely for shelf life, not human health. And if you are stocking up on cooking fats to heat those beans, you need to hear this. Number 7. Crisco and supermarket canola oil. If the power goes out, you will be cooking on a gas camp stove. You absolutely must have shelf-stable cooking fat. But look at what people frantically shove into their trolleys, giant yellow bottles of canola oil. We have been conditioned by decades of marketing to believe these are the heart-healthy choices. But canola oil does not come from a simple natural press. It is a highly engineered industrial product. The seeds are crushed, heated to extreme temperatures, and treated with a chemical solvent called hexane to extract the maximum amount of oil. Because this brutal process turns the oil rancid and grey, it then has to be bleached and deodorized with more chemicals, just so it does not smell like fish when you open the bottle. Critics and functional health experts constantly point out that these oils are highly unstable when heated and are packed with inflammatory compounds. If you are preparing for a crisis, your body needs clean, stable energy. It does not need highly refined, bleached and deodorized seed oils that behave more like industrial lubricants than real food. The front label suggests perfect everyday frying. The reality of the processing plant says it is a chemically extracted liquid hiding its industrial origins. Now let us talk about the base of all your emergency meals. Number 8. Massel and supermarket stock cubes. Stock cubes last forever and are the foundation of survival soups and stews. But unwrap one of those little foil cubes and look at the ingredient list. You will rarely find actual slow-cooked bone broth or real vegetable reductions. Instead, you find salt, maltodextrin, palm oil, and yeast extract. Yeast extract is a widely used flavor enhancer that acts very similarly to monosodium glutamate, tricking your brain into thinking you are eating something rich and meaty. Maltodextrin spikes your blood sugar, and palm oil is used because it is an incredibly cheap, shelf-stable fat that holds the cube together. You are paying for a chemical trick. When you dissolve it in boiling water, you get a salty, artificially enhanced broth with virtually zero nutritional value. If you're trying to keep your family healthy during a food shortage, feeding them salty palm oil powder is not the answer. The packaging promises rich, home-style flavor. The ingredient list delivers a highly processed sodium sponge. And when you want to make an easy meal with that stock, you probably reach for our next item. Number 9. Legos Bolognese and jarred pasta sauce. Pasta and sauce is the ultimate cheap, never-go-off dinner. But what is actually inside that heavy glass jar of commercial bolognese? You expect slow, simmered tomatoes, garlic and herbs. What you get is reconstituted tomato puree, which is just paste pumped full of water. Because watered-down paste is too thin, they add our old friend, modified starch, to fake a thick, hearty texture. Then they add sugar to hide the acidic, metallic taste of the cheap paste, and acidity regulators to extend the shelf life. When you pour it out of the jar, it falls in a single, gloopy mass. It does not coat the pasta properly. It slides off and pools at the bottom of the bowl like a sugary soup. Rhetorically speaking, why are you paying $5 for a jar of reconstituted paste, water, and modified cornstarch when a tin of actual crushed Italian tomatoes costs less than $2? The front label suggests an authentic Italian dinner base. The actual formula says watered-down paste bulked up with starch so they can charge you a premium for convenience. Finally, the ultimate comfort survival food. Number 10, Campbell's condensed soup. Canned soup is a staple in every Australian prepper pantry. But condensed soup is a masterclass in ultra-processed food engineering. Because water is heavy and expensive to ship, they remove it, leaving a thick sludge of wheat flour, vegetable oils, sugar, and an astronomical amount of sodium. The actual meat or vegetable content is often minimal, replaced by extruded soy proteins or heavily processed fillers that mimic the texture of real food. When you eat it, the overwhelming sensory experience is just salt and a strangely smooth, thick liquid that coats the back of your throat. A single can often contains more than half your daily recommended sodium intake. This is not nourishing, healing soup. This is a blood pressure spiking, starch-heavy filler designed to sit in a warehouse for 5 years. Do you see the massive glaring pattern here? As we move down the supermarket aisles, the exact same tricks keep popping up, replacing real fats with inflammatory canola and soybean oils, replacing real cooking reduction with modified starch 1422 and massive amounts of sugar, stripping the fiber from our oats and hiding the taste with artificial flavors, blending our honey with cheap imported syrups. The entire modern supermarket system is built on extending shelf life and cutting costs, not preserving human health. Make no mistake, this is a systemic hijacking of our emergency food supply. When farmers warn us that prices are exploding and supply chains are breaking, you cannot rely on these chemical emulsions to save you. So, how do you escape this trap and build a pantry that actually protects you? Now let us talk about the Australian options that are actually worth your time. You absolutely need to stockpile food right now. But you need to focus on real food principles, fewer ingredients, local producers, and foods that are completely immune to the ultra-processed machine. Here are 4 simple swaps you can make today. First, swap the quick sachets for bulk, 100% Australian rolled oats. Go to the bottom shelf and buy the massive 1 kilo bags of traditional rolled oats. They are cheaper, they have their full fiber intact, and they will give you sustained energy without the sugar crash. Second, swap the canola oil for Australian extra virgin olive oil. Stop buying plastic bottles of chemically extracted seed oils. Buy large dark tins of cold-pressed olive oil from brands like Cobram Estate. It is incredibly stable under heat, packed with antioxidants, and grown right here on Australian soil. Third, swap the fake tuna for canned Australian salmon in spring water. Look for brands like Safcol that proudly use spring water or pure olive oil. Avoid anything that says vegetable oil on the tin. You get pure protein and healthy omega-3 fatty acids without the inflammatory seed oil bath. Fourth, swap the commercial honey and peanut butter for the real deal. Only buy jars that explicitly say 100% Australian honey, preferably raw and unfiltered from a local market. And for peanut butter, buy brands like Maver's or Pix, where the only ingredients are peanuts and salt. Yes, you have to stir the oil back in, but that is the absolute proof that you are eating real food. Australian food culture has drifted dangerously far into a false sense of security. We believed that because we grow our own food, we would always be safe. But the fuel crisis and skyrocketing prices are exposing exactly how fragile our supermarket system really is. We are being conditioned to accept tiny, ultra-processed, chemical-laden meals wrapped in clever marketing. You do not have to tolerate it, and you do not have to feed your family sugary, seed oil-laden fake foods just because there is a crisis. Start reading the ingredient lists. Stop buying the thickeners, the imported syrups, and the fake fats. Build a resilient pantry based on real Australian produce that will actually sustain your body when times get tough. If this video opened your eyes to the tricks the big brands are playing in the long life aisles, tap the like button so we can expose this to more Australians before the panic buying starts. If you want to stay one step ahead of the food industry and protect your family's health and wallet, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because we are just getting started. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these fake survival foods shocked you the most today? Was it the hydrogenated oil in the peanut butter, the modified starch in the baked beans, or the sugar in the oat sachets? Let me know what you are throwing out of your pantry first.